Not a rumor.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Okay.
I've done great.
Well, for real, good morning. Is everybody feeling okay from yesterday?
Yes, sir!
You don't have to be that loud on my camera, though.
Yes, sir.
All right. That was a lot of good work yesterday. Like I've told you in the past, you guys work hard. We're just certain things we got to work on as far as techniques, right? It's all about techniques. And like I told you yesterday, I really care about making sure you get through things safely, right?
Yes, sir.
Not only through the training, but out there in the street too as well. So, you know, bear with me with the jokes. It's kind of like to bring a little levity. I mean, you guys have dealt with me enough. You got me for one more class next week. I apologize, and then vent, and I'm done with you. I'm not going to be around anymore. So, yeah. You gotta kind of diversify a little bit. So, talk about you guys with instructors. So, all right, this class, Grab Lives. Coit Kessler, like I told you, and Captain Kalmus came up with this fireground survival with a few other people across the U.S. Okay, it's a great course, and it's become dear to my heart. Maybe I'm becoming sensitive as I get older or whatever, and I got kids, and I really want to live now and see them walk off and get married. And that's kind of the thing that you guys need to start looking at too. You might not have a family yet per se, but take care of yourselves, right? And remember that thing, I think I brought it up to you guys yesterday, the 5 things that were kind of similar as far as line of duty deaths, and what was it related to?
Command.
To command, right? And that's why it's so important for us to always keep training, right? Always keep training on our level, whether it's by yourselves or whether it's the 2 of you together, or you get out there and get a station, right? That's gung-ho and wants to do that same thing. Find that place, all right? Always better yourself. Because what's the other thing that we talk about? We don't really fight fire like we used to, right? But the likelihood of someone possibly getting hurt or dying is actually going up a little bit. Why? Because we just don't have those experiences to derive from, right? So everything is training. Look, since I've been in, it's tailed down as far as fires. It's been a while since I fought what we call a real fire. Bread and butter, room and contents. I don't count that, right? I've been in long enough that I've seen some of the bigger stuff, but I haven't been on one of those big ones in a while. They just had one at Victory Drive, right? And I don't know if Captain Kalmus talked about it at all. He was saying everybody is always going to have situational awareness. All of us, from the tailboard level all the way up, right? And he's an aggressive, excellent, good firefighter, and he's thinking inside, man, I can actually knock this particular fire down from the inside, pull some ceiling, put water on the fire, right, and knock it out. Well, guess what? Command was outside going, I don't feel comfortable, because they were seeing something totally different. They had an excellent battalion chief on duty then, all right? Very situational awareness. He's very good at what he's been doing a long time. He says, no, I need you out. And guess what? That fire was jetting across the gable from eve to eve, right? And the wind was laying that fire down, and that apartment ended up collapsing, okay? So that battalion chief saw something. Obviously, Captain Kalmus did it, and he even admitted that. We were talking about it yesterday. So what we try to do now with everybody coming in, like I said, it's even changed. I've only been in, 17, 18 years. But it's changed since I've been in the last few years. We're kind of joking around, like I didn't used to be able to talk, right, on a fire. Like, hey, Cap, are we going to go ahead and be quiet? I got it. Don't say anything. And I didn't even have a radio. Now we're trying to train you guys. If you see something, say something, all right? It's important. If you're on the back of the engine with me, okay, and I'm in charge that day, and we have 3 million things going on. You know how we got to do our 360. We got to make sure wires aren't falling down. I got to make sure people aren't, whatever, right? Make sure we have water supply. And I go, you know what? I need you to go do a 360 with me. Why don't you go ahead and meet around to the other side? And that used to never happen. But what does that do for me? Go ahead, speak. What does that do for me if I send somebody else? Go ahead.
It's another set of eyes on something that you may not have seen.
Exactly. So I can take you today, right? I'm going back on shift today. And you don't have a whole lot of experience in fire, right? Other than maybe what's at the academy, were you a previous firefighter? Okay, but guess what? I can still send you around the Alpha Bravo side, right? I can go around Delta side, and I can meet you there and go, what did you see? Okay, well, I see smoke, you might not even have the proper terminology. It looks like smoke is moving fast through this window. You know what that does for me? That gives me a good picture. Or you can say, I don't see smoke pushing, it's just staining the window. Anything like that, right? So any information that you can give us while we're in charge, to the driver or to the senior tailboard, all right? Like I said, it's a totally different guys get to speak up. We're all doing 360s. You can go ahead and you drive up, you hear stuff on the radio, you're doing a mental size up, right? You kind of know the territory, hopefully, you're doing a mental size up, right? You get there, you look it, you do another size up, all right? You get inside the building. While we're fighting fire, maybe when we're actively working, okay? We're doing size ups all the time. And guess who's doing them? All of us. Not just the officer, but everybody inside that building. The driver that's pumping to it, that can see it, what's going on. The safety chief, the battalion chief, anybody that's up, okay? And the reason we talk about this like this, it's very, very important, okay? All this stuff we talked about yesterday, we began to, it's about trying to save ourselves, right? We get in that worst case scenario, something has gone down bad, all right? It's our worst day ever. But what's the real thing that we need to think about before any of this stuff? Prevention, there you go. We need to be aware of what's going on. If that house is fully involved, right, and we know for a doubt, or without a doubt, there's nobody inside that house. Fire is blowing out the windows. Black smoke is banked all the way down. And I've been with officers, and hopefully you'll meet him one day. Chief Don Klopp, it was my initial, Lieutenant Captain Key. He's been around for a long time. He's retired. Those were aggressive people. But even then, and we used to actually put the water inside the smoke without seeing the fire and work our way in, work our way in. We kind of don't teach that too much anymore, right? But even that, they would go, you know what? Let's wait a beat for a second. What's the likelihood of a person being viable in there? What is it? Nothing, right? So you can probably imagine. So what's our gear, first of all, rated at? Roughly temperature-wise, up to. Right. So the human body, how much heat do you think it could take? Did anybody kind of know? It's close to somewhere like 190, 200 degrees, okay? Before, obviously, it's going to start breaking down. Makes sense, right? When you think about it. You get hot water on you, you're going to blister. Same concept. But even besides that, all right? And that's not a very hot fire environment, is it? No. Not at all, okay? What's really going to be getting them at that time?
Smoke.
All the IDLH and everything that breathe in it, right? The superheated gases, stuff like that. So I'm a pretty gung-ho guy. I like to go fight fire. We don't get to do it that often. But even then, even if I didn't care about myself, okay, why am I going to bring somebody in, new person or my buddy inside, when I know in my head for sure there's not going to be a viable person there? I'm going to fight the fire. I'm going to knock it out. I'm going to do everything I can, okay? Maybe VEIS is a way to go, but why go directly into the fire? Does that make sense? Okay, so in order to prevent a lot of this kind of stuff, we have to think about that. So I want to make sure, I don't know if we get talk about that enough in this class. We say prevention, but recognition, right? Does that look right? CAP, LT, does that look right? Okay, that's where it comes on you. And you come in at a good time in your career, or to start a career, that you're able to speak that stuff, right? Endicott, I mean, even when you got in, were you really pushing with the tailboards to talk a lot and bring stuff up? It's more, it started a little bit more with him, but it's really transitioned, I think, noticeably for me, that people could speak up more if they see something.
That's so, every house I've been to, every house I've worked under, that was the expectation. I'm really happy that we brought it into the academy now and teaching it here. But most of your officers, day one will sit you down and give them expectations talk. And they're going to say, if you see something, speak up. A lot of times, when you have an officer who's been on the job for a long time, they're at a bigger tendency to sometimes get tunnel vision, because it's like a routine fire for them. It's routine fire where you're taking everything in at once. You're like, wow, well, my God, it's my first fire. You might notice something that they don't notice, that you just learned in rookie school, right, in cadet school. So
absolutely, and that's what, and he's right. It's a good thing now. It kind of preps you, okay, and it's something we got to work on communicating. Yesterday, and we'll talk about a little bit about the radio, obviously. What do they always say? Before you key up, make sure you think about before you speak, and that's hard to do when you're under pressure, right? That's why we try to beat into you, right, what to say, okay, if things go awry, if it's your worst day ever, all right? What did we learn? What's the mnemonic we use? Lunar gets thrown out there a lot. What are some other ones?
We kept saying who, what, where.
That's a big one. They're all the same kind of thing, right? So who, what, where. So you're going to say what, Murdoch?
Say Cadet Murdoch, where I am, Or at least my last known location.
Yeah.
And then what's going on. Am I trying to self-extricate? Am I bailing out of a window? Am I hunkering down?
And that's good information. So the thing I want to get you used to saying though too as well is when you say the who part, Murdoch, I want you to, in today, please practice, you got to say a unit. Okay? Because what did I say yesterday? If I know what unit you're on, I have a general idea of what function you were doing and maybe where you're at in the building. Does that make sense? That's not always 100%, but if you can get that information out, and what does that do too? That's an accountability thing, right? Because it's happened, right? People have gone in and they go, Murdoch on engine 18, and I'm going, lost. Holy cow, what? He was right with me, right? Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So if you get that unit designation out, okay, that's going to alert everybody as well, all right? And who do we say usually rescues the down firefighter? The people that are closest, right? Is it RIT that usually does it?
No.
Not usually, right? It's the people that are closest to it. Which brings me real quick before we start diving into this a little bit more. If you're actively fighting fire, all right, and say one of your buddies goes down, we're in a big facility, right? And you hear them, they're lost, they go down. Are you going to jump off that hose line?
No, sir.
No, absolutely not, right? Why is that?
Because putting out the fire will help that victim.
Putting out the fire always improves everything. Always improves everything, right? It's just our natural instinct because we want to help our brothers and sisters to go, we're going to do whatever we can. It's like ants on a mound, okay? We did a course, a CE, I don't know how many years now, 4 years ago. Were you when we did it at the ACC building on Grove?
Yes.
One of the best things I think we've done in a long time, okay? It was a sub-basement, dark as all get out, huge, covered a lot of area. Put a down firefighter, people use taglines, got all torn up. They try to do all this other kind of crazy stuff. We would simulate people fighting fire. There'd be like a glow on there. They would fight fire. Almost half, because the reason I know this is because I proctored it a lot. Almost half of the people dropped the hose line. Just dropped it. Not that they were being jerks. They just really cared at that time about their firefighter brethren, right? They dropped the hose line. And we're like, holy cow, man. And then they would kind of build this thing up like, oh, it's catching fire more and it's spreading, blah, 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 whatever the officer decided to do. So over half did that. That's amazing to me. That was a huge learning curve for us. So if you're ever at a fire and something like that happens, you've got to have it where it all and go, I am not dropping this hose line. I'm going to put this fire out so I can go help the other guys do the rescue. Does that make sense? You are a part of that rescue when you're on the hose line, okay? All right, I'm sure you'll get your award one day, your medal, if that's what's important to you, okay? Put out the fire, all right? Murdoch, I keep looking at you. All right, so anyway, so give me the reasons. Let's start with this. Give me the reasons we want to call a mayday. Let's go over them again. Lost? Out of air? Disoriented, low on air, right? Injured. Someone else is injured. Very good. Right. Your buddy. That's very, very good. So anytime you suspect that stuff, right, you go ahead and call that out.
Yes.
Right? We can always call off the mayday. If we walk into this room, you say you're lost in here. Maybe you've worked hard today, you're all disoriented, confused, and you keep running into a corner. It's happened. We've had people that do that. And we simply walk in and go grab you. You know what? We call off the mayday. Easy. It's done. It's not that big of a deal. But if you truly feel like your life is threatened or your partner's life is threatened or something's going on, you call the mayday. Okay? Don't not ever do that. All right? Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So tying into that, what they found, they did a study back in 2006, and they had about 160 firefighters. And you probably maybe read this, but this is very, very telling to me as well. So 160 firefighters that did the same thing we're going to do with you today. All right? Get them disoriented, lost, whatever. All right? So barely 50% of them actually called a mayday. That just wasn't in their wheelhouse to just automatically do that. All right? If you look at the other things that we should do, set off your pass, put a light up, make noise, it was significantly dropped. Like they either maybe didn't know how to set off their pass or just didn't do it. That was like in the 40% range. And it would go lower and then lower and lower and lower. And speaking of noise, that's something else we found out at the that CE at the ACC campus on Grove. So when it's a big facility, and this is not always, but there was a lot of reverberation, concrete walls, piping and stuff like that. When they set off that pass, we couldn't hear it. You could be just a couple rooms over.